Hello, my name is Wildstag, and thank you for tuning in to another used book rant. Today, I'm going to be covering this book, Foreign Element. It's a science fiction role-playing game that I used to have right up here, and usually that spot is reserved for used books that I find that are role-playing games of some sort, and not all of them I've played, and this is one of those that I haven't, but I've read it cover to cover, and every time I look at it, it is fascinating, and I want to actually get around to playing it, or at the very least, GMing it. So, what is Foreign Element? Well, as it says on the back, it is a rules-light system utilizing 6-sided dice. 6 ready-to-play character archetypes are included, or you can create your own. And the goal is that humanity is at its lowest point in its space exploration era. And you are hired on, or volunteered, or sponsored onto a mission to go somewhere that has previously been explored and you've lost contact with. And the goal is that you are trying to clear the mission for various motivations. So one character might be hired on or sponsored by a specific organization to retrieve that organization's classified documents that are there that they don't want some other scavenger to get. Maybe it's a person that is supposed to be bringing back samples of life, some kind of life form that a museum really wants. Maybe this person's hired to clear the entire facility, that way it can be re-inhabited. Or it's a volunteer who, their motivation is that they're trying to find a family member or clues to a family member's disappearance. So each character has their own motivation for this science fiction-esque mission, and the book sets up the backstory of this setting, what happened, where all these different locations are, the backstory of each of those locations. And obviously it can be modified for your own homebrew setting, but the system is a rules-light D6 system. I'm getting ahead of myself, and I'm going to cover the copyright information first. So this game is a role-playing game written by Nathan J. Hill. It's version 1.1, copyright 2013, but the page on the inside of the back cover says made in the USA, 04 April 2016. So this was made a few years after the game was published. The cover art is by Didi Putra, and the interior art is from the skilled work of Sean Thurlow, and the copyright information page includes links to their websites. And then some of the artwork in this book is from Image Portfolio, all rights reserved, used by permission. The table of contents page says how to use this book. This is a classic pen and paper role-playing game. All you need is imagination, friends, pencils, paper, and 6-sided dice. If you are new to role-playing games, check out our website for some links and information to get you started. The book is organized into 5 chapters that give rules, background, and resources to get started. Players and game masters should read the entire book, but since Chapter 5 is an adventure, players may want to hold off reading it until later. A character sheet is included at the back of the book and should be printed off as many times as needed. So Chapter 1 describes the setting, and as it states, the Great Blackout is a day of sorrow for generations to come. July 26th is that day according to the book, and there's a little missive here that says, July 26, 3021. Interplanetary Union officials this morning are confirming the grim news. Several hundred colonies, stations, and vessels have lost communication with Earth. This estimate is expected to rise rapidly in the coming hours. An IU technician, speaking on condition of anonymity, told the Interplanetary News Network this event is catastrophic in nature and does not appear to be a glitch or operating malfunction. In his own words, the technician suggests these colonies have gone silent. Other sources from within the IU Emergency Response Center confirmed the receipt of a handful of distress signals, but said the messages contained gibberish. We have halted all concurrent programming to report on this event. So, this event is a major catastrophe, and only Earth remains. So, one of the things this game does in Chapter 1, it describes how teleportation isn't really something that works for food or living things. Basically, organic objects can't be sent faster than light. But what they have discovered is how to transmit data across long distances. So it's a small computerized system that can transport tools and equipment across vast distances in one piece. So inorganic material, data, that kind of thing can be sent from place to place instantly. But Chapter 2 is where the fun part of this begins, and that's all the game. As it says, in foreign elements, it's pretty simple to create your hero. Choose one of 6 archetypes and tweak to your heart's content. If you raise a trait by 1 point, lower another. The value of all traits when added should equal 15. First of all, there's kind of like ability scores in other games. 6 abilities that are called traits. Each character has 6 traits, broad descriptors that help define their abilities. These, when you're creating a character, must be assigned values between 1 and 4. 1 being the minimum and 4 being the maximum. Prowess is your hero's combat and physical ability. If you're using, say, wrestling giant snakes or shooting alien hordes, you use that trait. Smarts is your hero's intelligence and know-how, and empathy is your hero's natural charisma and attraction. If you are fast-talking a scientist or trying to make a friend, you use that trait. So that's the action abilities, and then the reaction traits are toughness, which is your hero's ability to take a blow and keep on fighting. Focus, which is your hero's ability to withstand mental damage inflicted by otherworldly beings. And reflexes, which is your hero's ability to pick up on rapid sensory information and make sense of it all. You use that one for, like, dodging an incoming laser blast. And then each character has marks. And a mark is either a single plus sign or 2 plus signs. And what that means is that a double plus mark, you add a additional 2 6-sided die when you are rolling something relevant to that mark. And a mark is attached onto a trait, so you may have prowess, and then a double plus for a firearms master. So any prowess situation where you are firing a gun, you would roll +2. But if you're in hand-to-hand combat and you can't pull out a gun, you just roll your prowess stat, the number of die given on your prowess stat, and you roll that to determine successes. So it's also a success-fail kind of game. Sample marks here are Gunslinger, which is a +1 for prowess, Strong-Willed, +1 for focus, Mercenary, +1 for toughness or focus, Ace Pilot, maybe +1 for prowess, Winning Smile is a +1 for empathy. So there's a variety of descriptors. They're all small aspects of your character that don't apply to the stat overall, but to very specific situations. And then your motivations are at the center of your participation in the potentially suicidal gambit. When you make a roll relevant to your motivation, you get an automatic +1 die. So if your motivation is, say, you're competing with a coworker, a comrade, and they have a certain number of kills on a specific type of alien, and you want to beat that number of kills. Suppose your character has a 4 in prowess and a +1 gunslinger prowess mark, and you've got a motivation, you're trying to compete in number of kills, that motivation gives you an additional die. So on your turn for prowess, you're rolling 6d6 instead of 5d6. Whereas if you're just rolling prowess to try and hit a target and not to try and hit an alien, then you would only roll 5. And if you're rolling prowess to punch something, then you would get 4. But maybe you're punching the kind of alien that you are trying to kill a certain quota of, then you would roll 5d6. So it's a very simple game system. Like I said, every trait has a stat value of 1 to 4, and you assign 15 points to your character at character creation. Then you write up a motivation, you pick 5 regular marks, which are a single plus 1, and 1 double mark for your hero, which is double plus, or 2 additional die. And then you don't forget a name. It's a very funny thing to say on here. First one is come up with an idea, second one is assign the values, third is the marks, fourth is the motivation, and then fifth, don't forget a name. And I really like the writing of this book for that reason. And then once you get into the action, it specifies that an action is something cool, dangerous, or exciting your hero is attempting to do. Blasting a pack of robots that are chasing you down, that's an action. So actions are at the heart of this game. You'll want to be in a lot of situations called scenes where you do a bunch of action. So from time to time, we might refer to turns as well when we are talking about an action. Turns are simply defined as a sequence of actions where everyone gets to go at least once. Every player and the GM representing the bad guys, presumably. And then scenes are moments in the game, just like in a TV show or a movie, where something exciting is at stake, usually life or death. And scenes can vary and aren't always intense. And then it says rolling your dice. So you're in a cool scene blasting at a pair of marauding space vampires as they make air bike runs at your spacecraft. The sample difficulties are scene difficulties of 1 success, 5 successes, 10 successes, 20, 30, and 50. And in this story, you need to roll a certain number of successes to succeed in that scene. So they give an example of trying to really describe and get into the nitty-gritty of that narrative. What are you doing? The example here, Joe grimaces as he looks down the scope of his laser rifle. When the air bike speeds into view, he pulls the trigger with satisfaction. I hate vampires, Joe mutters. Then you figure out the closest trait to that, in this case, prowess. Prowess 2 covers Joe's combat ability, plus his mark sharpshooter gives him an additional 6-sided die. So now he rolls 3 for that roll. Third, roll that many 6-sided dice, and a success is any even numbered die roll, and a failure is any odd numbered die roll. The failure doesn't actually count. All that you're counting in any scene difficulty roll, any action roll, is a success. You don't actually really perceive them as failures, you just perceive them as not successes. And so he rolls a 2, 4, and a 5, which means 2 successes. Now, when you roll, suppose the scene has a scene difficulty of 10, and you roll 3 successes on your turn, where you're giving an example of what you're doing in that encounter, that scene. If you roll 3 successes, the scene difficulty subtracts 3 and becomes a 7. And so now I don't entirely know why that matters. I think really all you should do is count up. You have 3 and you need to get to 7. It says you subtract from the scene difficulty though, so I don't know what that's about. But the game is really simple, and I really like that. $8 is what I paid for it, and I think I'm going to get my money's worth out of it. It's at least very fun to read from cover to cover, but I know it's going to be very fun to play with a group as well. It's just very simple and very unique. So hopefully I get to play this sometime soon, because it's been sitting on my bookshelf for a couple years and I really want to get around to it. Anyway, that's for an element, and if you like simple role-playing games, this is going to be a good one to bring to a game night, especially as a one-shot kind of evening. So, yeah, my name is Wildstag, and thank you for tuning in to another used book rant.